I want to congratulate you, Minister, on becoming a grandmother. It's the best feeling in the world, I can guarantee you. I've two myself, and there's a lot of happy days ahead and a lot of joy. And I also too want to commend you on the phenomenal work that you've done in the last year and your department. You know, who would have thought this time last year what was ahead of us? Nobody did. So, you know, and I know that you have done phenomenal work. But there are a number of issues that I wish to raise today. Primarily around the social protection response to musicians and artists, which I'm sure you're well aware of, and all who work in the arts industry. And I have continued to speak on behalf of during this crisis. But before I get into that, Minister, I want to address a very important issue which others have raised here today, and that's the fuel allowance. You know, in the recent very severe wave of COVID-19 has meant that a huge number of individuals and families, including children, are currently confined to their homes, while previous stay-at-home periods were in the spring and summer. It's now winter, and it's probably going to get colder, and many households are struggling with the cost of staying warm as their heating bills have risen significantly. And I've heard one story of an elderly woman, Minister, who rather than stay at home in the cold of the house, she would get up and get on the Luas and go into town and walk around the Stephen's Green Centre just to keep herself warm and to not have to sit in the cold house and then go home in the evening. And it's devastating to think. So I would ask you to consider that there be an increase in the fuel allowance and to try and announce that as soon as possible, so that households don't feel forced into making difficult and perhaps dangerous decisions around the rationing of heat. Right now, we all know our homes are the best line of defence for public health, and it's vital that they're safe and warm for everyone. But now I want to get on to and express the grave concerns of hundreds, if not thousands, of musicians, performers, comedians, actors and all who work in the arts, from behind the scenes to front of house, whom I have been in continuous contact with since the budget, many of whom are distressed and are struggling to meet financial commitments. And as I said, I've raised this crisis in the arts sector on a number of occasions previously, and I've offered my ongoing support to an organisation called MEAI, who are working voluntarily in order to help their struggling colleagues. Workers in this sector have been in lockdown since March 2020 without income, and they really want to get back to work, but they have no opportunities to do this. On the 1st of February, it will be 327 days since restrictions were first put in place in the music and entertainment industry. With the exception of sporadic and isolated occasions, this industry has effectively been in lockdown since the 12th of March 2020, and they've relied on the PUP and payment breaks to get by. But many are facing the realisation that their homes may be at risk, and also for many their tools of the trade, equipment, instruments and vans are at risk. Many are forced to sell equipment essential to their business to survive, and we have to consider the greater picture here and understand the threat that this current crisis poses to the music and arts industry in Ireland, one of our most cherished industries. We are known across the globe for our creative talent as musicians, artists and storytellers alike. Their ability to work have been taken away by either guidelines or lack of clarity over good government guidelines. And even in this level 5 lockdown, wedding bands and private music teachers have been left in doubt over their ability to earn an income and honour private contracts. So we must show the necessary supports to our nation's creatives. We are already witnessing a fast depletion of musicians and artists from the workforce. And MEAI carried out a survey in which they found that 20% of the participants have been forced to move into other areas of employment, and 56% feel they will have to change occupation and leave the music industry. And it's just not acceptable. Music and art is at the very core of who we are as a country. At minimum, it's essential that the PUP payment that these workers are so heavily reliant on be continued at current rate right up until the reopening of the industry. Musicians and artists have reported difficulty in contacting the Department of Social Protection for help, being told that their concern is for the Department of Arts, Culture and Media, and this is where it gets confusing. But the Department of Arts are referring them back to social protection. So today I want to express the need for clarity for these workers who are already under enough pressure in these far from ordinary times. And I want to share some important statistics that illustrate the struggle experienced by musicians and artists today and reflect the enormity of the crisis in the industry. So in the MEAI survey, it's noted that 24.1% have experienced a 90 to 99% income loss, and that 41.6% have experienced 100% income loss. And these musicians and artists are incredibly self-sufficient. 95% of these workers are self-employed. With the shifting and changing guidelines around lockdown and the brief glimmer of hope between the level 5 lockdowns, many keen and conscientious musicians have paid bills to update their websites and insure their commercial vehicles in the hopes of having their chance to work. But these prices are very hefty, especially when it's coming from the already stretched PUP wage. So the survey also recorded that 22.4% have had no choice but to sell equipment essential to their work in order to get by living, and a further 35.8% feel that they will have to sell equipment essential to their work due to lack of support. It's an incredibly unfair position to leave these workers who want to work, perform and create, but simply have no option to. The report has also seen that 26 of participants are struggling to repay mortgage and in fear that their homes could be at risk. 31.6% are struggling to repay loans. 45.8% are struggling to pay bills, and 17.6% are currently in danger of losing a vehicle essential to their business. And perhaps the most sobering of all statistics is that almost 50% who participated in this survey are struggling with their mental health. That's 1 in 2 musicians and artists are struggling mentally and emotionally with the strain of this current crisis. Less than 10% of the musicians and artists said their mental health was okay, and shockingly, 25% are currently seeking help with mental health services. So these statistics need to be heard by everyone here today, Minister. It's simply not good enough that we haven't afforded more supports to the creators of Ireland. And as I said, music is at the foundation of our nation's identity and charm, and it's the duty of government to afford protections and honour the artists, musicians and all who work in the arts. And again, I say it, from behind the scenes to the front of house, who contribute so much to Irish culture and society. And now is the time to do that. Gurmila Mahag.